The Game Time Network is proudly sponsored by Matt Gaddis at State Farm. If you need help with car or renter's insurance, Matt Gaddis has you covered. And we are also powered by our friends at Wired to the Nines. For any low voltage needs, reach out to them via email at wiredtothenines@yahoo.com. And don't forget about our friends over at Bigsy Sports Grill. If you're looking for a great time and some great food, head over to Bigsy Sports Grill on Brookville Road in Indianapolis. Thank you to all our sponsors for supporting the Game Time Network. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Side by Side. Back at it again. We're going to be talking all three motorsports this week. Obviously, last week was a bit NASCAR heavy, but both motorsports back. All three motorsports were in action this weekend: F1, IndyCar, and of course NASCAR. And I am joined once again by the co-founder of Crossroads Sports, Mr. Brandon Reef. Brandon, we got a lot to talk about this weekend. It has been a argumentative weekend for sure. You know, everybody in NASCAR is talking about Martinsville needs to come off the Cup schedule. You got F1 fans arguing about the racing and how they want to go back to the 2010s, and then IndyCar. People were just like, it wasn't the best race, but it was an okay race. We're definitely going to talk about that. I actually watched Barber in full this week, and I was thoroughly entertained. Christian Lundgaard. He almost had it if it wasn't for that rear wheel, and it would have made the standings really interesting. But Alex Palou getting that win. So we will start with IndyCar. But what did you think of the weekend as a whole? There was a lot of argument on social media about the racing this weekend, so I'm curious what you thought.
Yeah, maybe not the three sexiest races that as a race fan you would expect, right? I think overall, as you mentioned, you know, Barber probably was the most exciting. It was the most thrilling there at the end. NASCAR, it really was down to two people. You could say three, you know, it was the whole time. And then Formula One, well, it's Mercedes continuing their dominance. Yeah, you got people pissed off. You got fans pissed off. You got Bubba Wallace and Hocefer pissed off at each other. You got we'll talk F1, but you got Max Verstappen throwing the media out before the race and a press conference from last year that he's bringing up even still. So, just a lot of feelings. I'll leave it at that. A lot of feelings this past week with all three series going in there. But IndyCar, continuing their strive. You can say, well, it's boring because Alex Palou. Well, no, Alex Palou won and he had a decent lead throughout a lot of that race. But, I mean, between Graham Rahal, Christian Lundgaard, those guys, you know, they had their shots to win. I said Malukas. Malukas started out all right. Yeah, I had him as a chance to win that race. It was really scary looking at that race with the crashes that we had in practice. No brakes for Will Power.
I didn't watch practice, so I don't know. This is new info.
Will Power, no brakes, going 150-something miles an hour, no brakes, straight into the wall.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I saw that because luckily he went backwards.
Scott McLaughlin going into one, spun backwards, through the fence. Through it.
Yeah. That's the crash I saw.
And that ended practice. Practice was over because obviously you had to rebuild a fence. And it was a weird spot that it happened. But overall, I was impressed with IndyCar. Of the three, I will say I was happy with the result of the NASCAR race. I think we can.
Of course you were, for sure.
Even though I had listen. I will say I was a little upset because I had a parlay of Michigan money line, UConn money line, Alex Palou to win. And Denny Hamlin to win.
Oh, really? And you know what? Last week we both agreed Hamlin was going to be a contender to win.
Yeah, and I was tough because I was pulling for Denny, but then I chases my guys, so it was very, very tough. But man, couldn't pull that one off overall. But overall, pretty solid weekend. Love it anytime we have racing.
No, I agree. I watched a little bit of the F1 race. Obviously, fans aren't too happy, and there's a lot of argument back and forth on social media about the racing over at Formula One. And, some people, revisionist history is an interesting thing. When we talk about, I think a good example before I talk about F1 is WWE, right? The product isn't the hottest right now, but people are saying, oh, this is 2019 is better than right now. Absolutely not. That's what I call revisionist history. 2019 WWE is not better than current day WWE. That's not, I will never agree with somebody that says that. Like people right now are saying 2000s F1 is better than current day F1. And people are showing a certain race, and then people are fact checking that person and saying there was only 2 overtakes that race. So it's just interesting how, people will, revise things to make it fit an agenda. But I thought the IndyCar race was the best race of the weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed the race. And I think what also makes me enjoy the race more than I did the other 2 races, especially the NASCAR race, was the broadcast team. Buxton, Townsend, Bell, I mean, they do a really good job at, not just talking racing, but breaking down what you're seeing, throttle control, keeping the car, just handling that car at the speed it's going throughout the road course. I thought it was an excellent broadcast by Fox. I know Fox gets a lot of, criticism on the NASCAR side and even on the IndyCar side, but I think the broadcast for IndyCar have been really, really good.
I went back and watched it because I didn't watch. Let's say I watched the race, but I didn't have the volume up, and I was in and out quite a bit because Sunday was a little bit of a nicer day, so I was able to get some stuff done. But I had it in my AirPods. I was listening to it through the radio, through Sirius XM app. I think the IndyCar Racing Channel audio is fantastic. Indy 500. I'm 41 years old. I remember growing up where you can only listen to the race on race day, right? So I have a special connection with listening to either MRN for NASCAR on the race or IndyCar on the race. I remember I was going to college, first 2 years, Southern Indiana, Sunday afternoons driving back. Well, boom, pop up MRN NASCAR, listening to the race on my drive back, those type of things. So, broadcast crews are good. I thought NASCAR wise this past weekend, I thought they did all right. I'm
just not feeling this booth. I'm trying to give it a shot.
You only got like 5 races left with it. So
I really like Kevin Harvick. And that's about it, and Mike Joy's my favorite broadcaster of all time. That's what made me want to broadcast. That was all he's my guy. So I never have a problem with him. I think really
try to get him on the show.
I'll keep working at it. I've sent a couple comments on Twitter. I think Boyer's my biggest distaste with the NASCAR booth right now. And somebody made a good point when they did the crossover in Phoenix and they had Townsend Bell up there, and Bell asked him like a serious question and he's making a Wendy's joke, and it's like, not everything needs a joke. Like I know Harvick's driven the next gen car, but you've also you got to give us some type of serious information once in a while. And it feels like most of the time it's Harvick delivering that information and it's never Boyer. Boyer's just
Let me ask you this. Is there too many drivers in the booth? Remember we used to have a driver
and a crew chief.
Had a crew chief and we had Mike Joy, right? That put it all together. You had Mary McReynolds for a while.
I think maybe we just don't have the right driver in the booth.
Right. I think NBC's was perfect with I can't think of the main guy.
It was Alan Letarte, Earnhart, Jeff Burton. It was
and
4
Steve
guys.
Letarte at times. Yeah. Like that was a good crew. You had your driver, you had your crew chief. I think if you just add a crew chief into there, I think that keeps Boyer from having an awkward moment, and he can kind of maybe step in and answer that question. I think Clint's in there for the comedy side, a little bit of it. I really do.
I think if you put Boyer in Michael Waltrip's spot to do the grid walk, I think he'd kill it. I just don't know if he'd be a good booth guy. I don't know who else you'd go grab. I think maybe Tony Stewart, if he'd want to do it on a weekly basis for Fox, but I don't know. There's a couple guys that I think they could go out and look. But just compared to the IndyCar booth, I feel like it's really night and day. I really enjoyed the IndyCar race. Obviously, Kirkwood leads the standing by 2 points. Lundgaard and Malukas and Newgarden, they're kind of hanging back there a couple points away, about 40 points away. It looks like Lundgaard's maybe more about 30, but The standings, it's continuing to be tight. Kirkwood ran good at Barber, didn't really have a shot for the win. We'll see what happens, right? Lundgaard and Malukas have looked solid all year. Just got to nab some wins here, especially if you can't let Palou get too far out and away with these wins, or it's going to get out of hand real quick.
Let me ask you this. If you're Honda, are you excited or are you nervous right now? Because you got the top 2 spots, but then look, you got Chevy behind it.
You got the best driver on the grid, so in your car, so I wouldn't be too worried. But yeah, it's a little concerning. But the standings are still close from 3 all the way down to, I'll just say 6 right now. Since they're kind of like, basically you round that up, it's 100. So I wouldn't be too concerned if I'm Honda. I'm happy for IndyCar, right? Because before the season started, there was a question of if Chevy and Honda were going to both leave the sport. Like, there was serious concerns inside, like, from reporters and everything else. And then both teams decided to re-sign. It was all coming down to Honda. If Honda re-signed, Chevy would re-sign. If Honda didn't re-sign, Chevy's only in sports apparently, or in motorsports, just to compete with other manufacturers. So they re-signed after Honda re-signed. So I'm happy for IndyCar. I have thoroughly enjoyed the sport thus far into this season, because I'm not a big IndyCar watcher, but doing this show, I've tried to watch it a lot more, and this was the first race I got to watch basically a full race, and I enjoyed it for sure. Over on the Formula One side, they were in Japan this week, and as we head to Miami, the standings look like this. Kimi Antonelli first in the standings, followed by George Russell, then Charles Leclerc, then Lewis Hamilton, and then you have Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri rounding out the top.
Good showing by McLaren. We came back this week.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I watched the highlights of this race. I am not, that first race in Australia, I thought the racing was good. But with the drivers and everybody else, it's the battery. Everybody's complaining about the battery. Even Lewis, I find it funny. Lewis, those first 2 weeks, I love the racing. Now it's, I don't have the battery to overtake nobody. But and that's a fair argument. Everybody on the grid's talking about it. I use battery to overtake this one guy, and then he gets me right back the next time around because he's got more battery than me. It's not really racing, we're talking about battery.
Didn't they make some qualifying changes to the horsepower or so this past week?
Something like that, yeah.
I didn't see much of a change what they did. I read it, but I didn't see much of a change in anything.
Yeah. It's weird because I feel like the last couple of years, F1's been probably, everybody's enjoyed it. The product, it's had its issues, but you could say right now, like, NASCAR and IndyCar kind of got the upper hand when it comes to the product side of things at this moment in time. Yeah. But go ahead.
Is the Max Verstappen thing starting to wear on you? Because it's wearing on me. Like, take your ball and go home at this point. Like,
yeah,
I liked him. Now I'm just hearing way too much complaining every single week. You're throwing out media on the opening press conferences because of grudges you have. And then there was a report that he most likely could be stepping away. He flew in on helicopter just for the race and then flew back out immediately. Like, just quit crying. You've won way too much. It won too many championships in a row and stuff to be pouting like a little baby. If you want to leave at this point. I'm just over the Verstappen stuff now. And that's a shame because I liked him.
No, I don't. I'm about 50-50, right? Kevin Harvick and Will Buxton, they talked about it on their show. And Harvick kind of said the same thing, but he was also like, this is the guy that's won the title the last couple of years. If there's going to be any serious change, this would be the guy that needs to really speak his opinion. But, you got the other drivers speaking their opinion too. I kind of get it a little bit, right? I agree with what we talked about a couple weeks ago. Is he in there helping the engineers make this car better? If he's not, then no, that's on him. But at the same time, everybody else is making a big deal out of it. Max is just making a bigger deal out of it. And I think the reason he is, and Buxton brought it up to kind of counterpoint Kevin Harvick, was Max has been talking about these regulations since they were announced a couple years ago, and he's been saying it over and over and over. If you do these regulations, the racing's going to suck. The racing's going to suck. Just continue to tell them, and they did not listen.
Does
so
it
maybe
suck
that's
just because it's him not into the lead.
Buxton said he's been saying these regulations weren't going to work since they were announced a couple years ago. So maybe that's why he's super frustrated, because he's like, I told you so. Like, I've been saying out loud, like, no one's going to like this racing product, and you guys still went along with it. So maybe that's why he's more frustrated. So I think it's a yin and a yang. On one hand, yeah, dude, you've won multiple titles. I just stick it out through the year and you can leave. But on the other half, if you've been telling if you've been telling F1 and the higher ups, like, hey, this racing's not going to work, and they still do it, yeah, I'd be yelling every week I'd be yelling every week too. But kicking out the media was ridiculous. I don't agree with that. But complaining every week because you've been calling it for the last couple of years that this was going to be the result of the new product, I can't even be mad at him at that point if that's true. And Will Buxton obviously worked for F1 for years on years, so I'm going to take his word and I'll run with it for sure.
Okay. Yeah. McLaren, 5-6 right now. And the points. Listen, just I think they're screwed for the championship. Obviously, I mean you're not out of it, but
I think
not participating in a race a couple weeks ago, that's a huge concern.
Yeah,
but you can see it. There's your breakdown. Mercedes the best team, Ferrari second, McLaren right now third. It's I won't say it's not expected. I thought McLaren would have had a good chance this year as well to battle for that second spot in the team, which they can. They're only 20 something points out. So
yeah, I knew they'd have a little bit of a drop off because the year before regulations, some teams will pull back and start working on next year, and some teams will take that advantage. And props to McLaren. I mean, they said we're gonna go win this title this year, and obviously they're still working on their car next year, but it just kind of gives off that thought like, okay, they may be a little bit worse come the new regulations because they went at it so hard last year. And that's kind of the case. Obviously they struggled those first two races, but they may have a chance to get by Ferrari in these next couple of races. It feels like it's going to be Antonelli versus Russell for the title and nobody else. Maybe we have a late season comeback, kind of like last year with Verstappen. But right now, it feels like it's going to be Antonelli and Russell. But we will see what happens. This is probably going to be the last time we talk about F1 for a while because
they don't. The next two races were the ones that were canceled, so we got a month until the next race.
Yeah,
so
it'll be interesting. What were you going to say though?
Before that, will prevail in this month off, maybe.
We'll see, or maybe they just announce somebody else is driving the Red Bull and Verstappen's done. We will find out. Speaking of Verstappen, before we move over to NASCAR, Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic, they cover a lot of NASCAR on Twitter. Obviously, they did their podcast. I think it was before Martinsville or after. You probably saw the clip on my story where they said if you're IndyCar or NASCAR, obviously Verstappen has no interest in running either series, but man, you gotta like they need to come together at Roger Penske and Jim France and put a blank check on Verstappen's table and be like, look, you run the road courses here for maybe 5 races, you do road course. Like, you got to do something. In IndyCar, I think it'd be so good.
He's going to do the sports cars, man. I really do over there. That's going to be his thing. And I think he's happy. He's made enough money. I don't have to travel across the seas, the pond to get back to the United States for races. And I heard rumor that he doesn't like racing over here.
Really? That sucks. I wish he would. I wish he would. I mean, if you're going to leave F1, might as well just come do everything else. I don't know.
I think I saw like 3 years ago, he bashed NASCAR, saying that it was the most boring type of racing that there is out there.
Well, buddy, look at your product.
Right? But of course, he's going to say that then because he was winning like every single race, every single championship at that point. So, like, I don't know if he'd be welcome in the garage.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I know a lot of drivers have some disdain.
Put Hosefar up there right next to him, and we'll let him rattle his cage a little bit.
Well, speaking of Hosefar, we're gonna pull up these NASCAR standings. Hosefar and Bubba Wallace got into it. Obviously you got certain Bubba fans that, just weren't too happy with that, but it happens. It was a little aggressive move by Bubba Wallace, but I mean, at the end of the day, both of them were going down in the standings week by week, so it doesn't really change much there. Chase Elliott moves up to fourth, moves up one spot after the
Bubba,
win.
He's real quick. Bubba screwed himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he dropped 8 spots in the points. If you do another BS thing like that, where he's like, well, if you got your anger get to you, which that's what Bubba Wallace does quite a bit, right? And he makes these stupid moves sometimes. It just costs you 8 positions. So who's to say the next race or 2 races from now, you don't have another pissed off time where you do it again. Guess what? At that point, you're going to be chopping right to the cut line. And then you're going to have to deal with it all over again. Yeah. That you deal with it almost every season where are you in? Are you out? So really, I think he cost himself. He did. He really did.
Yeah. And he still, it looks like has the second most stage points. Looks like Ryan Blaney now has the most at 64. But yeah, I mean, you got to be more consistent here when you're Bubba Wallace. That was a huge blow going down 8 spots. So Busher, Larson, Brad Keselowski, I mean, a lot of guys got the jump on you.
Shout out Ty Gibbs, 5 spots up.
He's been consistent week over week since that COTA race. Yeah. Since we've gotten away from the super speedways, it has been Ty Gibbs. He has been very, very consistent. We've been talking about 5 through 6 is really those sweet, 1 through 6 is really those sweet spots. If you want to be contending for the championship in the chase. Tyler Reddick continuing to hold strong at first place with 353 points. This season has been interesting to say the least. I've enjoyed this season so far. Kind of looking down here at the cut line. Mm-hmm. You've got a mix of Spire, Penske, and RFK. There's in Trackhouse, there's a lot going on here. But 1, 2, 3, the Spire cars. And honestly, I think all 3 Spire cars have run well all year. I thought at the start McDowell was the best, but right now I'd say Hocevar and Suarez are about tied. They've run well the last couple weeks. Obviously, Hocevar had the incident at Martinsville, but he ran really well at Darlington. So props to Hocevar and Suarez for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said you thought all 3 gets in. I think you might have said that a week or 2 ago.
If they keep like this, yeah,
absolutely. You look at that list down below. Crazy right now. You got Cindric, Chastain, and even Briscoe. I thought Briscoe would get in. He started out way back, right? He was in 30-something. Yeah, gained up another spot. You can almost say Toyotas, man, have been the most consistent this year. And most consistent. And sorry, Bubba, you didn't keep the consistency last race. But overall, yeah, I'm impressed with how they're doing. Chevys did what they needed to. Chevys were a good vehicle, always run well at Martinsville. They were able to do that this past week. Byron was up there. Chase Elliott, the gamble paid off, man. It was risky, but the yellow came out when it needed to. You were able to get off pit road. You got your 22nd win overall in the NASCAR division. Hamlin led 292 laps, man, finishing second. I hated it for my bet, but he's got to hate it more. You dominate that entire race, man, and don't come out with a victory. But you won last week, which is great. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't hurt as bad. And let's look big picture. Big picture for Denny Hamlin's the championship. Yeah. Whatever you want to do to get to that championship, you do.
And you're sitting in third.
Yep.
And you're in one of those spots that you need to be. If I'm Denny Hamlin, I'd like to maybe get to second. I don't know if anyone's going to catch Reddick, but we'll find out. You're going to need to win a lot, but I think Hamlin's in a good spot. This is the lineup that I was hoping to see come, when we get closer to the chase. I think Briscoe will obviously get his way in at some point, but I think the biggest, disappointment right now, and that's an understatement, is probably Kyle Larson. You would expect him to be up there in that top 5. Mm-hmm. William Byron has been really quiet thus far this year, but he's up there in 5th. Not neither good or bad. He's just there. So props to William Byron. He's just been running. And the Chevys have been, in my opinion, I think they've been the worst car so far. But it seems that Hendrick is starting to get a hand on this new Chevrolet body. And like I said last week, Chad Knaus is the competition director or something like that. This is his format. So go ahead and I know he's got to have something under his sleeve for the teams that at least make the chase when we get there. Brandon, I want to ask you. Obviously Rockingham is this week for Xfinity and O'Reilly. Cup Series is off this weekend because of Easter. Should NASCAR consider taking a date away from Martinsville or Bristol, one of their spring dates, and giving it to Rockingham for the Cup Series? Everyone's been talking about the racing at the short tracks haven't been good with the next gen car. Someone opposed taking Martinsville off the schedule completely, and I was like, no, that's stupid.
No.
But then somebody said that we at least need to find a date for Rockingham, and getting rid of one of the Bristol or Martinsville spring races would be the best, because neither of those do well ticket wise. And I was like, I'm not opposed to that.
I think I'm fine getting rid of one of the Martinsville races, the spring race, maybe for Rockingham, getting that back on.
Yeah.
I'm also not opposed to getting rid of the spring
Bristol.
Phoenix race.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to getting rid of the spring Phoenix race and just keep the one you have in the chase, right? I think we're going to a lot of repeat tracks during the chase that let's throw a curveball in. Let's not have any practice from a previous race in the season, and let's see how these guys do at the track when you come in for a weekend. Like, you don't have any data to come off of besides obviously previous year, but yeah, I'm a fan of getting rid of this first Phoenix race and going to a Rockingham.
That's not bad at all.
Even if it's like a late April, early May. I know you can't do it in March because sometimes you might get some snow there in North Carolina. Well, hell, you can get snow in Bristol or Martinsville too at the same time. I remember it snowed one time in Bristol.
At this point, with the weather and everything else, you can get snow anywhere at this point. Yeah. So I don't know. I'd like to see Rockingham back on the schedule. Obviously, them in North Wilkesboro got done a little dirty when NASCAR was in its expansion phase a couple decades ago. But I would hope
back. Give me Chicagoland. That's one of mine I like.
Well, it's coming back. It's coming back this year, so it'll be a good race for the next gen car. And that's also been the discussion this weekend, is this next gen car. Everyone's like, well, it fixed the 1.5 mile problem, but road courses short tracks are super speedway racing is. I think everyone's complaining about the short track racing. The super speedway races are so luck of the draw. It takes my interest away from them a little bit, other than Atlanta. But Talladega and Daytona, it really feels luck of the draw to me with the racing there. What are your thoughts on the next gen car so far? And you can talk about the last couple of years as well. I will keep saying it. Probably just add more horsepower into the car and probably get rid of the rear diffuser. Those are probably two things that could ultimately make the short track racing and probably the road course racing better.
Yeah. I'm always a fan of the older cars, right? I think it was.
I agree.
I don't remember if it was Gen 4 or which one I liked.
It was Gen 4. It was definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to be too critical on it because I think anytime you have change, it's going to take a bit. I think we had the same issue when we went from the previous car to the latest one before that, right? And then everybody calmed their stuff down from there. So really, overall, I have no problem with the next gen car we were running currently, and I think you can make little tweaks. I'll tell you this. Even with the car we have now, the racing is still better than what I'm seeing over in F1 with the different types of packages, right? So I will accept what we have. Let's enjoy what we've got here in the States.
No, I agree. And, I think people are just, it's not like, they're not saying it in like a negative way and saying, oh, everything sucks, because we've got the chase. So there is a lot of positivity surrounding the sport. I just think people are kind of like, okay, this is, we're enjoying the season. Here's some things that we don't like. Obviously, the staged cautions is one thing that is probably the bigger outcry than the next gen car. I think what really made people mad from what I'm seeing on social media and what people have talked about is Phoenix was a great taste of what more horsepower could bring, because it made the race slightly better. And people are like, it feels like you gave us a slice of cake and then took the rest of the cake away. And I think that's how people feel.
Uh-oh. We lost Isaiah for a minute. I think he accidentally closed his screen, so he'll be back in a moment. I have done that before in our Crossroads Sports one, so we'll get him back on. No, but I think what Isaiah is saying, I personally feel that, yeah, they gave you a piece of cake and then they took it away, but I still think they're trying to get results from it, right? I think they're still data analyzing what they got from that and what it's going to look like in the future and when they can bring it back and at what time they can bring it back. I still think they're analyzing the data. How much of a increase, how much in a positive results did we see from this, from the drivers, from the cars? I think that was really what our big thing was with it. And I'm not against them doing that once again at some time. But yeah, I think we're just analyzing data for that. So I have no problem with that. Hey, you closed out the screen like I have.
The computer died on me.
Oh, wow. No, what I was saying was...
It gave me a notification, and then it just shut off. Usually it gives me a couple minutes to plug it in real quick.
When you said you take a piece of cake and they give it away, as I was telling our listeners and our viewers, I really think they're giving it to you, but then they're pulling back. I still think they're analyzing the data from it. I really do, and seeing, hey, what worked, what didn't work with it, with the certain type of each brand of vehicle and such, and where can we either tweak it a little, make it a little bit better or so. And I think they say, hey, let's do a one-off just so we can kind of see what our results are, come back to the table, and then maybe here towards the summer and late fall, when the excitement's lifting up as we're approaching those playoffs, right? The chase, sorry, not playoffs, the chase, then we can bring it back. So I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah. We'll see. Someone made a good point. They were like, NASCAR's never made a horsepower change in the middle of the season. They've done it for like the All-Star race, but that's it. So I'd be shocked if they do it. Now, next year, I think, when we get to the offseason, they may actually look at it and maybe make a change. But I'd love if they did that. They say, hey, we're going to just put the horsepower at 850. And I'd be like, yes. I'd be so happy.
Exactly.
I'd love it if they did that come the chase.
Yeah, we don't have any races this week.
No. So we may do an episode. We'll see how it goes. If there's something interesting we want to talk about, maybe continue to talk silly season a little bit, do a silly season episode and preview all that. Maybe we'll do that next week. But we may not have an episode. We will see. Brandon, any last thing you want to mention before we end the show?
When's this pod coming out? Is it coming out today?
Yeah, it'll come out today. All
right, perfect. Yeah. everybody, please it's April Fool's Day. Do not be duped online social media posts. I've started seeing a couple people doing it. A fake F1 account said they were going to a certain track April 12th, and everybody was freaking out about it. It's a fake account. So please don't be duped. The racing was great. Everybody take this weekend off. No races, except unless you want to watch Xfinity and trucks, which if you want to watch that, great. It's a great track. Rockingham is. Yeah. Enjoy family time. Happy Easter. Isaiah, you have a happy Easter as well. And congratulations on your guys' 1 year with
Thank you. I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, if you guys go check out our video, we have a 1 year anniversary, some of our best clips on the show. Everybody's already texting me and they're like, I can't believe you picked Oregon over IU. And I was like, well, that's just how I was feeling at the time. So, but yeah, I'm very grateful for it. It's been a heck of a year. And I appreciate, meeting you and JB, thanks to Daryl, and, found a new racing buddy to talk to. So I appreciate it for sure. So, folks, make sure to go check out our other content on the channel. That's going to do it for this episode. Side by Side. We'll see you guys.